The situation at the Texas border has become a contentious issue in the United States, sparking debates and controversies in recent months. Texas has experienced an unprecedented surge in migrants, primarily from Central America, who are seeking asylum or a better life in the country. This has led to clashes between the federal and state governments over how to manage the crisis, with conflicting approaches and policies. One major point of contention is the significant financial resources Texas is investing in its border operations, including funding for state troopers, National Guard deployment, and a new Texas Tactical Border Force. Additionally, the state's decision to allocate funds for a state-funded border wall has stirred controversy. However, perhaps the most controversial aspect is Texas' strategy of transporting migrants to other parts of the country, particularly so-called sanctuary cities. This raises questions about the implications for Texas and the nation, as well as how sanctuary cities are responding to the influx of migrants. There are legal and humanitarian concerns surrounding the state's actions, prompting scrutiny of the governor's motives and goals, and their impact on his political standing and prospects. This discussion explores the Texas governor's decision to send migrants to sanctuary cities and its broader implications to the USA. Immigration issues have long been a concern in Texas. In October 2005, Governor Rick Perry announced Operation Linebacker in Laredo, aiming to safeguard Texans from terrorist threats, notably from groups like Al-Qaeda. Perry warned of the risks posed by criminal organizations exploiting the US-Mexico border, alleging their capability to smuggle illegal substances and weapons, including reports of Al-Qaeda and Hezbollah activities in neighboring regions. Expressing dissatisfaction with federal efforts, Perry pledged to bolster state law enforcement presence along the border, utilizing resources such as surveillance technology and boats, using $10 million in funding, including federal grants. Over the ensuing 17 years, both Perry and his successor, Governor Greg Abbott, pushed for significant state investment in border security, launching multiple operations and initiatives to address gaps they perceived in federal oversight. Their approach involved deploying additional troopers, National Guard members, and local law enforcement to deter illegal immigration and criminal activities. They also advocated for increased physical barriers and improved interagency cooperation. These announcements often coincided with gubernatorial campaigns or periods of heightened political tension with the federal government, particularly during Democratic administrations. They attribute the humanitarian and security challenges at the border to the Obama and Biden administrations, citing policies like DACA, asylum, and family reunification that they claim incentivized illegal immigration. Additionally, they criticize the government's legal actions against Texas, particularly regarding border security laws, which prohibited sanctuary cities and mandated cooperation with federal immigration authorities. Governor Abbott launched Operation Lone Star in March 2021 to combat people and drug smuggling into Texas, targeting criminal organizations profiting from migrant suffering. About 4 months later, he instructed state police and the National Guard to arrest migrants on criminal trespass charges for crossing private property, citing complaints from landowners. Temporary jail facilities were established to detain migrants, who faced imprisonment and fines. Furthermore, Abbott began voluntary busing of migrants released by the federal government to other states due to insufficient resources, following the Biden administration's decision to end Title 42. This decision, deemed reckless, exacerbated the humanitarian and security crisis. In response to Texas buses dropping off migrants in cities like New York, Chicago, and Denver without coordination, mayors implemented measures to regulate arrivals, citing safety concerns and violations of local ordinances. They expressed a willingness to welcome migrants, but stressed the need for better communication and cooperation from both the state of Texas and the federal government. Earlier this year, New York City experienced a significant influx of migrants, with 14 busloads arriving, the highest recorded total since spring 2022, according to Mayor Eric Adams. These migrants, totaling over 990,000 since April 2022, were bused from Texas as part of Operation Lone Star, directed by Governor Greg Abbott. The destinations included sanctuary cities such as Washington, D.C., New York City, Chicago, Philadelphia, Denver, and Los Angeles, chosen by the migrants themselves, many opting for locations offering more benefits and protections. Governor Abbott justified this action as a means to highlight the national nature of the border crisis, emphasizing that it was not solely a Texas problem but a concern for the entire country. He argued that Texas and Arizona bore the brunt of the chaos, resulting from federal government failures to secure the border and enforce immigration laws. Despite substantial investments by these border states in border security, Abbott criticized the federal government for neglecting or undermining their efforts. He stated that both states had also endured the social and economic repercussions of the migrant influx, including heightened crime, drug trafficking, public health hazards, and strained public services. By transporting migrants to other states, he aimed to reveal the reality and severity of the border crisis, compelling the federal government and other states to act and assume responsibility. Additionally, he aimed to challenge the perceived hypocrisy and double standards of sanctuary cities, which he accused of criticizing his policies while offering little assistance to migrants. He emphasized providing migrants an opportunity to pursue the American dream in cities that purportedly welcome and support them. City leaders facing migrant influxes grappled with accommodating them upon arrival, acknowledging the complexity and compassion needed in such situations. They sought to balance migrants' needs and rights with those of their own residents. In December 2023, Texas also flew over 120 immigrants from El Paso to Chicago. Mayors Eric Adams, Brandon Johnson, and Mike Johnston called for increased federal support, labeling the situation a national humanitarian crisis requiring a federal solution. They urged the federal government to reform the immigration system, create pathways to citizenship for undocumented immigrants, and provide resources and guidance to affected states and cities. The mayors emphasized the economic and social benefits of welcoming migrants, such as expanding the labor force, enriching cultural diversity, and enhancing communities. However, according to a spokesperson for Abbott, the mayors were avoiding fulfilling their self-proclaimed sanctuary city promises and criticizing Texas' efforts to aid overwhelmed border communities. These Democratic mayors should urge their party leader to finally fulfill his duty and secure the border, a responsibility he continues to neglect. They have accused the mayors of prioritizing their political agenda over the welfare of their constituents and the nation, labeling them hypocritical and irresponsible. Additionally, they have asserted that migrants pose a threat to public health and safety, emphasizing the state's right and obligation to safeguard its borders and sovereignty. In response to criticism, the mayors have defended their actions, asserting they are following federal law and the Constitution while upholding their values as sanctuary cities. They have questioned the governor's motives, accusing him of exploiting migrants for political gain and scapegoating them. What are your thoughts on this situation? Share your opinions in the comments section below.